inviting me. I'm delighted to be here today to share with you some of the work we've been doing at the Open University. I'm very privileged. I work in the Research Institute there, the Institute of Educational Technology. And I think what's exciting for us is that when we do collect data, sometimes we can have 10,000 students on a course. And I'm going to tell you about some of the courses we've been running where we've been using interactive computer assessment, with over 2,000 students, and to show you the effects of that as well. But I want to raise some challenges to the community, and I think this is really exciting times, and I do think computer-assisted assessment is, as our previous speaker said, is going to have its day. Okay, so let's move forward. First of all, let's have a look at assessment from the student's point of view. Wait a minute. Here we go. No, the video's not running. Oh dear. It was, you know what it's like in a rehearsal? Everything goes fine. Let's have a look. I just want the... I won't seem to... Thank you. Here we go. Don't you love technology? Good when you're being assessed by the student, as a student. But, and here's an example. The next slide shows you some work by Chris McKillop. She was looking at students' narratives of assessment, and they do seem to have insurmountable mountains and steps to climb. But what about from the tutor's point of view? Tutors are very conscientious. They want their students to learn. And they want to give them interesting feedback, but marking too can be a terrible bind and take a long time, and not necessarily with summative assessment assist the students in their learning. So I think we've got a real challenge here. We've got the real constructivist learning push, and if I asked all of you to put your hands up, I'm sure you would say that you are constructivists. You know that students learn from each other and from other tools, and that there is this social construction of knowledge. But of course, when we are giving, examination results and pieces of paper to our students, there has to be institutional reliability and accountability, and this is a real tension. So I would say at the moment where we have very good Web 2 tools for learning and producing learning activities. But I think as far as assessment's concerned at the moment, we have a wolf in sheep's clothing. And we are, in fact, very behaviourist. But let's have a look at some examples of what's going on with our computer-based assessment. Obviously, I think that examples of marking where there is confidence-based measures as well has made a big difference, and especially has been taken up with the training of medical students. And we are using these systems for summative assessment here at this hospital with the examination with nurses, where they're looking at drug charts and the administration of drugs. This has been used. And what about some high-stakes testing? The entrance exams now in Cambridge, part of them are using multiple choice questions, very sophisticated ones. And why is this important? And what are the advantages of this? Well, it so happens that the students come in and they take the examination, and they are a little way apart. They're trying, not to allow the students to cheat from one another. But there was a an instance where some students had the same answers and they thought cheating must have taken place. But because they had this system with the logs, they found out the students had actually answered the questions in different orders. So none of this was going on. Here's an advantage to using this sort of system. And we at the Open University, and I pioneered this course, it was very difficult to get through the system. This is high stakes testing. Students get feedback, they're scaffolded during the examination. Now this is only a very short small course, and it consists of 10 points. But it's, at the Open University you can come to us and study without any qualifications. And you can take the first year science course. But if you want to move on in science, you must have mathematical capability. And so this examination and this course brings you up to scratch in your mathematics to move on in the science. And so this exam is taken at home. You get some scaffolding. If you answer correctly the first time, you get maximum marks. If you have more help, you get less marks. So this is an example of a summative examination being taken place at home. And there is no point, as I said to the board, for the students to cheat. If they cheat themselves. They cannot do the course the next time. So this was a big breakthrough for our university. And of course, self-diagnosis is important with these systems. And it's being used, Cyber is using this at Cambridge for ICT skills for the medical students. And of course, you know, students are using these questions that we're using at the university as part of their course for revision. And we say that, you know, this sort of help will induce metacognitive skills. They will start to understand how they learn. And we're starting to see evidence appear in the literature for that. But the theoretical drivers for assessment have all been very personalised. Piaget's work here has an influence, and of course the AI movement in the 70s and 80s, which I was part of, didn't show all its promise at the time, and the funding disappeared. But I think AI now has its day, and is really coming forward. But what about Bruner's work? And this has influenced us at our university, and in the work I've been doing, to use computer-assisted assessment to scaffold and to give feedback. And you saw some examples of feedback even in an examination. Now, the feedback we started to develop was for interactive tasks, not for, you know, during our courses. And we had a tell, explore, check model, which you know, works very well and is very good for even in science, where you know, have simulations. If you ask students to predict, look, and explain, they certainly benefit from what they're doing. And what we've done in our systems and in our computer systems now is to give feedback, and then you have 2 attempts, and the 3rd attempt there's a show me button. Now here are some examples of the tasks and the tests that are put forward. Here we've got a very important topic at the moment that gains all sorts of funding from everywhere, which is global warming. And what we have done is sort of set up a sort of game and a simulation. In the top left-hand corner, you can see the carbon molecule. I mean, it's very big, I'm afraid, but it's like a ball that will go into. Oh dear. That's now we're stuck. I don't know why. Sorry. I think we're frozen. Anyway, what you do is you move the carbon atom into the different reservoirs, but you have to understand the process. So if you have carbon inside a plant, then you want to get it into the atmosphere. You've got to have, if you have carbon inside an animal, you want to get it into the atmosphere, you've got respiration, so you've got to understand that. Whereas if you've got carbon in the atmosphere, you want to get it into vegetation, you've got to understand photosynthesis. But you can't move the carbon around unless you understand the processes. And it's quite problematic to get them into the different areas. Then I was going to say, what is the we actually looked at the source of interactivity, the types of actions that we're asking the students to do. In mitosis and meiosis, there wasn't a lot of interactivity. We had films of the genes and their division, and then you had to run the movie yourself, and you had to label it and get it to run. So there wasn't as much interactivity, and you can see that where there's not so much interactivity, then there wasn't so much cognitive change. So what are the so the interactivity and feedback is important to learning and can be used to check the learning and the assessment. So that was from a very individualistic stance, but what about the social constructivism that we all know about and is helping us in our social tools? And we're twittering, I'm sure the back chat is going on now. Goodness knows what you're saying about my presentation, but I don't care. Here we go, let's keep going. So Vygotsky and its influence. Activity theory influencing us about tool mediation, and we're talking about really exciting tools now. And about authentic assessment. How can we make the assessment more authentic? What are the sorts of things we can do and certainly present using our technologies? And the role of peer interaction in assessment. And I don't think we're making great progress in those final areas. However, Eliot's characteristics. Eliot has put forward his terms for what he thinks should be going on in assessment, whether it's computer assisted or not. And the thing that is missing here, and that I want to emphasize, is the notion of feedback, and how feedback is so important to the learner. Now, some authentic assessments we know about, e-portfolios have taken off. But what's important about this particular example that I'm going to show you, which is from Further Education College, and this is students on a chef's course. Now, these students are very good at writing up their accounts of what they're doing. They go out into the field, they go to restaurants, and they have to do their apprenticeship. But what was important, they were sending back photos via Bluetooth of the work they were doing. And this was going into their portfolios. But more importantly, the tutor was using this work to actually base his theoretical sessions back at the college. So he was using their examples to introduce the theories and the topics to get them more involved. And in fact, the use of the portfolio was changing the pedagogy, which I think is a very exciting development. But what about sharing e-portfolios? There's not a lot of evidence out there, but this is an exciting paper where we have real significant change. What happened here, this was a course of doctoral students in a virtual university. One group shared their portfolios, the others didn't, so there was more peer feedback. And the group that shared, received feedback, made a difference. Peer assessment is something we're trying to struggle with at the moment, and we think is very important. And Loughborough's WebPA tool has been very effective. Why it's been effective is the lecturer who set this up had been working doing peer assessment for 10 years. But more importantly, when they use this tool in Loughborough, in other courses where they'd struggled with peer assessment, because this was a tool that was on the computer, that everybody could access at any time, was transparent, showing what everyone was doing and how they should interact at what time, when they should give feedback. The students felt this was fairer and transparent, and they were willing to go along with this. Before, if they've never done this before, they don't know what the benefits are. So here again, a tool has become very important and convincing to this generation of students.